Hello, hello, hello. How are you? How are you? How are you? It's evening here in Australia, so greetings, whatever time it now is for you, where you are. Now, there's a few people just waiting on to join us, and a couple of people, because I gave a bit of short notice for this one, a couple of people had texted through a few questions as well and said, can you please answer them for me for the replay? So we're going to do that. I've actually built that into our presentation for today, so I'll get started on that in just a second. But basically, I think a couple of the people who wrote in were just sort of saying that they were feeling, understandably, Sydney's just literally, we're going into restrictions again right now today. And I think there's a lot of people share the kind of sentiment that here we go again, and there's a big sigh out and everybody's just a bit over it and a bit overwhelmed. And I think particularly if you've been dealing with a lot of stress at work, that's maybe very much the case, that some people are feeling a bit like that at the moment. So I think in that respect, like, part of the thing has been about just wanting a space where one can just come back into one's own clarity and one's own energy, minus all the stress and all the baggage and all the bleh. So that was one part. Was one person was saying, well, I just need to get a little bit more, I feel like I need to find my me zone again. And then another person was sort of saying, well, how can I get free of the fuzz and the doubt right now? Because I'm in a place where they've had to make a life transition and they're just a bit unsure what to do next. So we've got some questions coming up today that will help with that. So we might just get on to that now and get into that now. Let me just pop this on here. So that's me. For those of you who haven't met me before, hello to those of you who have. And to those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Nat, and I'm a coach, mentor, trainer, and speaker who basically runs women's leadership development and readiness programs. And I really love helping people who are speakers will get more connected and clear and be more confident and courageous in their speaking. So that's part of my buzz. And I thought it'd be really great if we ran a piece on leadership purpose today, just given how things are in the world. And I thought I might tell you a little bit about my background as well, just in case you don't know. And why would I be talking about passion and purpose? Passion and purpose is a big thing for me. I think once upon a time I tested up, I did the career tests on the one that they used to give to people in the military after they came back from the war, right? One of those that they gave was pretty good. And I remember I tested up on, I think, my 4 or 5 areas that I should work in my lifetime were performing arts and something creative, business and entrepreneurship, anything to do with spirituality and religion. Community services came in at number 2, counselling community services, and outdoors environmental things. And pretty much, I think by the time I was in my early 30s, I'd trained in and in some respect kind of worked in, and have since combined every single one of them in one way or another. But I also, when I was 9, I had the unfortunate thing happen that my mother died of leukemia when I was 2 days before my 9th birthday. That took a couple of years of progression, and she had a very negative outlook from moment one. But I had this moment 2 days after that happened where we were at a picnic area in the country, in Melbourne, outside of town a little bit, up Emerald Way, up near Puffing Billy Way. It's a train that exists here that's like an old steam train, for those of you who are overseas and don't know what that is in Australia. But we were there that day, and I could not have been less interested in my birthday on that particular occasion. I already had 2 birthdays prior anyway, one with my brother in October and one that I got pulled out of when we got the word that she was about to go. And I was thoroughly over it at that point. But I sat there, actually stood there next to a tree, and I was just contemplating. It was just all these stuff that was coming to me, this whole sort of line of thought that was coming to me. And I got this whole download around how I had this choice now, because some people in my position would understandably go into grief. They would miss the person. You can spend a lot of time in that space of grieving, and you can kind of put your life on hold and be afraid of moving on. So it was like I was hearing this story about that in my head. My mother was a social worker. It was very much the kind of thing that she would probably tell me. And then your other possibility is you accept the fact that this horrible thing has happened, but then you decide beyond this that you're going to keep going on living, right? You're going to choose to go on, and you're going to try to do the best that you can to live your life to the fullest and love as best that you can and do things as best that you can despite what has happened, right? And so it was put to me in my head, so what are you going to choose now at this point? And I sat later, contemplated, stood there for a little bit, and I thought about it. And for me, it was like even at 9, it was fairly like a clear choice. Could be the Sagittarian in me as well. Was this fairly decisive choice of, well, why would I not want to like choose the live on aspect and live life at level 10 as best I can? Before she had got sick, I was always the kid who'd be dancing around the lounge room, trying to gather everyone together to put on a singing dance performance in the lounge room and get everyone together for that. So I was very full of creativity, and I was very full of passion from an early age. But that whole event kind of put a dampener on that for a bit, until my drama teacher came in when I was really running off the rails in about year 9. And thank God him and his art teacher wife came, because it was just the right time that just kind of realigned me when I was really going off just the despair pathway a little bit, and the doubt, and there was a lot of conflict at home, and I wanted to leave home, but I couldn't. That was just like this godsend of a thing that I will just never, to this day, I just never understand why 2 people would just choose to do that, and they just chose to be there, and they just chose to step in, and thank God they did, because I found so much of myself in that space that they created, this arty, the drama classes and the school plays and everything that I went on to win awards in. And I actually went on to performing arts school at uni after that. I had a choice of going and doing psychology, which I wanted to do, but I was a bit anti-boxes and putting people in boxes. So I did it as a minor, as a part of having got into contemporary arts drama. And so I ended up studying that, ended up having a lot of life stuff happen at the end of that year, nearly broke my back. There was some very traumatic sexual assault stuff that happened. There was a lot of family stuff, you name it, stuff went wrong. At that point in time, you name a thing that can go wrong, it was probably going wrong. But at least I wasn't in a war zone getting blown up at the same time and tied to a wall. So, little wins. But it wasn't exactly the most gracious of times. And so I ended up taking some time off after that, took a break. I ended up working. I worked in a few things. I worked in, sometimes we'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, but sometimes you do that thing where safety became a priority then, and money became a priority then. So, and through that, I worked in retail for a bit. I worked in health admin, and I actually ended up working up through the management side of that while I kept studying over the years. I studied. Additionally to that, I did the biological science degree. I always wanted to be a vet or work with had an interest in medicine or vet as well, but I didn't quite get the marks to get there. But I ended up doing a degree that allowed me to study animals and environmental science. Remember those things that are like my 5 that I got tested on. So I found a way to do that, and it ended up being called a human biological science qualification in the end. And from that, I went on to counselling, and from counselling went into a specialisation into art therapy. By then I was working in community services, and eventually came to working in private practice at the same time as I was managing wellness clinics and doing the business administration side of that. And within my private practice, I was doing women's health, I was doing stress management. I had this beautiful time where it all exploded beautifully all by itself. And I started speaking within then, which is kind of like a entirely different expression of it's so different to performing arts, because it's like, it's all very well to do one thing of standing up and play a character, right? On a stage, you've got this degree of anonymity, and you've got this wall that you can kind of hide behind this character on stage. But when you're a speaker, you're butt naked, standing up there with your wisdom and your words and your everything, just having to like share your truth. So I kind of went through a bit of my own journey with that, and we'll talk about that on other webinars that are about why I talk about overcoming fear and building your confidence. Today we're talking about passion and purpose. And funny, but that weaves back in, right? Because I had to deal with fear, and then it becomes a part of my purpose. But yeah, so speaking became a thing. From having success in managing other people's clinics and starting to get momentum in my own, I ended up training as a coach after that, because as a counselor, I was a mentor and a coach, basically. So there came a point where I was working a lot with doing trauma-informed with work with people, and then decided that I needed to do some coaching qualifications as well. The same time as my brother insightfully said, you should be a motivational speaker, one day when we were sitting down, having a very worldly chat after my grandfather had not long, I think he was sick, or he'd not long passed at that point. We had this huge chat about things, and he was the one who first put that on the agenda. But in the meantime, I became a wellness leadership coach, ended up mentoring other practitioners, and out of that, I ended up finding that my speciality was helping people get really clear about their talents, their gifts, their message, their purpose, and helping them find the confidence to put themselves out there. Yeah. And if I didn't believe it, then LinkedIn certainly said it as my top 3 things, because that's what everybody said was a part of what I did. They were like wellness, health, and she's all about public speaking. So I was like, that's interesting. We'll talk about that as a question that you can ask yourself later, also as one that gives you clarity around what is your purpose, how do other people see it being for you. Can be a bit of a step in that. So yeah, I ended up doing that. Then I ended up out of that eventually, come back around to a point now where I've been running my own, I was in partnership with some other people for a bit, running events that were all about helping you. Some of them were like networking events, and there were also opportunities for you to like put yourself out there as a speaker and have kind of like practice as a speaker. I've been running lots of practice ones over the last year. Had a health thing last year, but still managed to run some events around public speaking practice and overcoming your fear last year. And so I've sort of just come back around to this point where I think the thing that lights me up really the most is just helping leaders find their groove and really step up and shine in doing what they're here to do, right? Because Lord knows we're at a point, we're at this massive turning point on the planet right now where a huge amount of change has to happen. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. It's already happening. And there's this huge tension going on between the leaders that have been in there forever. Some are trying to be very proactive in changing it. Some, it feels a bit like are just waiting out their time, waiting out for their rewards, their accolades, their big things that they get to walk out the door with, and they've got zero interest in actually challenging and overcoming the system. And then you've got a whole heap of Gen X's and millennials who are just, and certainly Gen Z's who are coming in super passionate, ready to change the world, but are chomping at the bit to change things. And you've got this huge tension right now from this philosophical standpoint and this bigger picture standpoint around how people want things in the world to change. And that's part of what all this angst is that's going on at the moment. But yes, I'm really passionate about helping people find their piece, step into expressing their piece of the puzzle within that, which is exactly why I do what I do and exactly why we're running this today. Make sense? So that's a part of why. Also, on the topic of why is it so important that we get clearer in our sense of purpose, in addition to that beautiful bigger picture piece right there on an individual level and for the organizations that we work in? Why is it also important? So I think it's a little bit hard sometimes to kind of pick a direction if we're kind of not attuned to ourselves and we don't have a sense of what our sense of purpose is or what's important to us or what we value. How do you pick a direction? How do you pick a direction in a job in that respect? How do you pick a direction for a business? What do you stand for in a business? What do you stand for in a practice? That's why it becomes tricky, right? If we don't have some sense of clarity. And then it's hard to kind of, if you want to speak and you know you're here to make a difference and you know you want to be a leader, again, it's a little tricky to have something to say unless you know what it is that you want to say, right? So we're going to have a little bit of clarity in our purpose. And once we have a bit of clarity in our purpose and we've made some decisions around that, then it's like the clarity of our message is able to drop in. And that's really important. I think another thing that happens that can be really tricky is that in terms of our earning capacity, we can end up hitting a bit of a plateau. I'll show you a model in a second and we'll talk about why that's the case if we're not clear what our purpose is. And if we're not enjoying what we're doing in life, in our day-to-day, if it all becomes stress and drudgery and 9 to 5, and we're surviving and we're enduring instead of thriving, that can have a tremendous impact on our health, our well-being, our stress levels, how fast we burn out, so our resilience. And that can have flow on for our relationships, professional and personal, because then we're just angsty. We're pissed off all the time. We're not happy. We're not content. Therefore, somebody else, at some point, it ends up coming out somewhere else in the relational chain, potentially, right? So that can be tricky as well. That can be a source of tension because our internal tension then gets projected onto other people. From an organizational perspective, this can also has flow-on detriments, also benefits. We'll talk about them shortly too. It can have costs to your employers and it has costs to organizations, right? Because when we're not feeling great and we're not engaged, we're not working hard, we're not motivated, we're not productive, that's costing the organization money in that we're absent. We're not fully on the job. We're there, but we're not there. If you can go into a zone and get your stuff done, that's fine. But if you're sitting there dreaming about something, Googling something else, then that becomes problematic, right? Lost productivity. Again, there's disengagement that happens within that. Staff are less likely to want to engage in a culture that they have they can't see themselves in being a part of, that they can't see themselves as having a purpose within it, and they don't feel aligned with the other people in there. You're more inclined to want to get in, get out, and there's not necessarily a sense of connection within that. So that can create a culture that's disengaged. Again, that stress can transfer into that. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, then stress becomes, or negative emotions can start to become dominant at times within that, and people can start to, without meaning to, I think sometimes we can become difficult within that because If we're not fulfilled, then we pick at little things, and other things can flow on out of that. And it's just not great for the overall culture when you've got people who are just, if you can't get some sense of the value that you provide and there's a reason for you being there, that's not great for culture. That makes it hard in that respect for anyone to kind of want to be in or around that energy. It becomes very routine and monotonous rather than being something that's about heart and passion in that respect, right? Does that make sense? So I'm hoping that you should be able to see the top of this. I can't because I've got presenter screen right now. So I've got the top of it slightly cut off there. But yeah, so we were just talking about this little model sort of talks about there's a bit of a journey to what happens when we go through and we're clarifying our life purpose. And I think it looks a little bit like this at times. I'll sort of illustrate in where some of the organizational stuff sits in as well, but I think this is a little bit more focused on the individual. So I think, do you remember how we were talking about through my story, how there's a sort of stage at which I think for some people, they just haven't ever thought about what their purpose is. They've sort of gone into a skill, something they can do. They've gone straight into making money. Whatever circumstances driven that, sometimes it can be like, well, I've never really thought about it. I've just done what I was capable of doing. I've stepped into doing that and I haven't really thought about that, right? So that can be sort of at the basement level of you're just there to get the paycheck and you're there to get it done. So again, it might be something that you're just happy. Yeah. So you're happy to go in, turn up, leave again. And purpose might be something that, like, the joy of it and passion within it for whatever reason might have been at that level something we've dismissed as being something that's relevant to us or as possible for us. So part of the thing with that is then, if we want to move past that, it's reconnecting with ourselves and what we're passionate about and how we can incorporate that into our work, right? What tends to happen at this level, and if you're uncertain as well, this can be the same in entrepreneurship as it can be in or when you're employed as well. If you're uncertain and you don't have that great degree of clarity around what it is that you want to do, and you don't have that, certainly if you don't have that clarity about what you want to put out there in business, you end up with gaps in income because you're probably jumping between roles or opportunities. And in entrepreneurship, you don't put anything out there because if you don't know what you want to put out, then you don't put anything out there. And then it's a little hard to make money if you're not putting anything out there, right? So we want to get you past that one, definitely, for sure. At the next level, I think it's when you get sick enough of the way things were that now you're interested and you're starting to feel into, like, well, really, what is it? What is it that I'm here to do? What is my life purpose? What am I passionate about? What really lights me up? You're starting to ask those kind of questions and you're starting to look for opportunities to explore that and get experience in doing that, right? So now when you start to get to this level, the opportunities that you get into now, you're going to want to stay in a bit longer, because once you get one that's, you're in it, you're like, oh, I'm loving this. So then you get that whole experience of like, oh, I want to be here. I want to stay. Oh, this is what it's like to be in a job I love. Cool. I love this. I love these people. I love this place. Awesome. So you start to, or even if it's in business, right? When you hit your niche for the first time, or you hit the thing that you want to do, you're like, like, there's this part of you that just lights up inside, right? So this is when you're starting to get to that. You know what hits right after you get clarity around that? Fear. A giant wave of fear, usually, that, oh my God, especially for women, but for people in general, I would say, having spoken to a lot of them about this the last decade, I think, yeah, the fear hits. And then there's the tendency to want to run away again, because, like, we can worry that we're not enough and we're not going to be able to do it. And what if you can't? And what if you let people down? And and you stir yourself up into a mental storm of fear. And I don't know if I should do it, and then pull back from it, right? Go towards and then pull back. So the process of getting through that is breakthrough, and we'll plateau in terms of whether we're in entrepreneurship or we're in employment, you'll plateau in your income around about then in your earning capacity, because you can't, if you're not putting it out there, you can't get past that barrier of wanting to earn more. That becomes tricky. Then you become committed, right? Then you get sick enough of the fear that you're going to go, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to the kid, the emoji, not the emoji, the meme of the kid who's like, like, I'm just seeing that in my head while we're talking about that, right? This is the bit where you get committed and you decide you've got clarity now and you're like, right, that's it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do whatever I have to learn how to do it and get better at that. So at this point, you'll start investing money and resources in further training or doing courses with coaches or mentors or something, or you do something that upskills you for the kind of organization that you want to work with. So that's what happens then. And then I think this opportunity happens as well. If you're in this could happen in entrepreneurship, and it can also happen in employment as well. In employment, have you ever had those opportunities, or it comes to that time when, especially for people when the managers around them start to pick that they're really ready for leadership opportunities, they'll start asking you to fill in for them when they're on leave or anything like that, right? Somebody's going to be away. Oh, we've got this thing, and they might second you to some other role. And then you start to get this experience of you get thrown into like leadership capacities, or you get thrown into something that you love doing at a higher level, but you're not really fully all the way committed because you're filling in for someone, right? Maybe you're filling in for a practice manager. Maybe you're filling in for the usual EO or whoever the thing is, right? And so the perk for that is probably you get better, maybe casual money, and you get better money for that. So you're like, oh, this is cool. And you get a bit of experience of doing what you love at the same time, which builds your confidence a bit that you're capable of doing it. And then comes the point where you actually, and that could be the case in entrepreneurship as well, right? I know for me, I ended up franchising under other coaches and mentors, and I built a lot of confidence in doing that and got a lot of experience through doing that for a start. And that's kind of like the entrepreneurial equivalent as a coach of I did that for a bit and then went out and did my own thing, right? So that's kind of like the same level or the same version of that, where you're getting experience, you're getting practice at it, yeah? Then comes the level where you're owning it, that now you're stepping into being the leader, right? Whether it's in entrepreneurship or whether it's the roles that you've stepped into in middle management or above. And now it's just all about you getting the tasks done, because now you're the one who has to delegate and you have to lead and you have to get everybody aligned and motivated and doing the other things. So suddenly your focus shifts in that respect. Now, depending on whether that's in an entrepreneurial respect, because you've stepped up in your own business, and you've got a growing body of expertise growing there, or whether it's you're within a business, probably there's going to be more income that comes with that. You can possibly ask for more, and maybe there's more bonuses that come with that. So moving up in the earning capacity stakes. And then you get to that level, you keep getting more experience, and you get more experience, you keep doing things that you love and lean a little bit away from what you don't, and you keep going towards what you love. And you get more experienced in that. You're building your expertise in that, in either domain, and you just keep growing. Your network keeps growing with other people. More people know of you in the work realm because you end up networking with other organizations, other stakeholders, other clients. Everybody's small world in certain industries when you get out there, or in entrepreneurship, it's the same. And sooner or later, you end up being known for something. And then you're in this beautiful place where you can actually charge more for that. So your earning capacity just technically went up again. And finally, I think at some point within that, you get to this beautiful point where you are not only feeling like you're living your purpose, you're making the kind of difference you want to make in the world and helping other people to do that. You're having a positive impact, but you also are able to, in that respect now, if you've done it in a clever way, then you'll have money to invest back, and you'll have resources and time and energy, hopefully, to give back, right? And I think that's important to a lot of women. I think that's important to a lot of people. So this might be, tell me, where would you fit into that at the moment? At what level are you sitting at on that? Or where do you want to be instead? We need to have a little think about that for a moment. So I just wanted to progress on now put on a series of questions for us now to help you get some clarity, deeper clarity about your leadership purpose. Right? And there's about 10 of those because I'm feeling extra generous tonight. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to do a little like visualization process. I love to do them. I've been missing doing them on webinars and in groups and all descriptions. So I thought I might throw one in, which will help kind of activate parts of your unconscious. It might be a little bit woo-woo in places, but it will certainly help you get some downloads and shift into the right energy, right? Which is why I love doing them. So we're going to do that after some questions. Yeah. Cool. So if you haven't already, make sure that you grab a notebook, a pen, a paper, an iPad, something that you can take some notes and take note of these questions now. So the first one, I know it's a little bit cliche, right? You've heard this one before, but what's the answer now? What would you do all day long tomorrow, just for the love of it, if you didn't have to work and if you had enough resources that you could do whatever you want? What is the thing that immediately first pops into your head that you would do? Feel free, I'll just give you a moment to just write that down. This presentation is going to be available to everyone downloadable later, so don't stress if you haven't got it right now. It's all good. You will have a copy of it to work off and it's all good. But yeah, so that's your first one. So I'm going to go through them, and if you want to just take a moment to write them down, and you can always come back to them later, just so that we don't have to keep you here all night for them and we can keep going with them. But yeah, so that's the first one. Second one, what issues or world problems are you most passionate about right now or in general? It's kind of a little bit easier when we've just had a pandemic, right? But we've got another question about that shortly. I'll just give you a moment to take that one down and contemplate that. What issues or world problems are you most passionate about? If you need a little bit of inspiration, so it could be environmental, it could be social issues, it could be political issues, it could be something to do with your industry, your client group in particular. What comes to mind in that respect? So again, we'll just move on to the next one, but I just wanted to give you a moment to write them down. What legacy can you not leave this planet without passing on? You remember I was just saying about my story with my mum before? It was like, it was that day or the day that she died, we were leaving from my birthday party that day and we were supposed to go and say goodbye to her, but we actually didn't get a chance to because she passed just before we got there, right? So one of the things that I've often talked about, and one of the things that's hugely important to me in life, is making sure that you always make every moment count when you have a moment to tell people how you feel. And you have a chance to say the little things that it's easy to just go, well, I'm busy, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't need to tell them right now. I'm too scared to tell them. I'll just go do something else. But for me, that was a huge lesson, right? If you've ever met me in person at an event or anything like that, you'll see I'm huge on hugs and goodbyes, and I will hang around to say goodbye to you. And there's a certain energy that I do that with. And that's why. That's a big part of why. It's because that's a part of the thing that, for me, it's very prominent in my mind. Like, what things can I just not leave unsaid? right? So there'll be an equivalent version of that for you. So I want you to think about over the next few days, what's the latest for you on what that is of the thing that you cannot not leave on this planet as your legacy. Who do you most want to help? This one is a little bit tricky. It's a little bit tricky in two respects, right? When I've been working with entrepreneurs over the last decade, this one's always tricky because it's like, who do you most want to help often brings up people around you that are very familiar to you, that you like a lot. And it also sometimes brings up groups who've been through something that you've been through, who are going through something, but they may or may not be very financial right now. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, it may or may not sort of have commercially clever kind of legs to it in the process of whatever you're thinking of. So I think in the respect of this, one of the flags I was just going to say is just have a think about the commercial applicability of it in business or in organizations, as opposed to does it fall into a charity heading instead. I think one of the things we need to be really clear about, I want to plant the seed of early, save you a bit of the drama that I went through in building my own practice for a start, right? You've got to be really clear about the boundary between, am I offering or am I getting into charity right now? Do I want to get in charity? Do I want to set it up that way? Or do I want to get into business and making a profit? And who you most want to help may or may not change, or there may be another equivalent of that, right? When I first started having a business coach, I came on wanting to help women who'd been through the same kinds of struggles that I'd been through in life. And that may have meant that they may or may not, depending on if they were in the middle of it or not, that may or may not have meant that they were financial at that point, right? But I remember my mentor at the time pointed out that for all the sexual abuse and the issues that were important to me to help people to move beyond, right? He was like, you realize that all that still kinds of exists in corporate, in other parts of the world, in the rich circles that I grew up in. He's like, you realize that all exists there too. It's not like it's only at that end. So there's actually other people that you could also be helping with the same problem, who we could do that in a commercially cleverer way. But it's just, I just wanted to seed that seed, right? So there can be multiple ways of who do you most want to help? It could be multiple expressions of that. What is that for you? I'll just leave you with that one. What are you trained and experienced in? Skills, qualifications, past jobs, volunteer positions, in terms of what you've tried in a business so far that may or may not have worked. What comes to mind if you were to make a list over the next few days? What comes up in that realm in terms of what you're already skilled in? Yeah. Just give me another little moment to write that down. What are you trained and experienced in? And 6, what are your strengths and talents? Some kind of flows out of that, right? Sometimes this one is a little bit harder to answer, because sometimes, especially in this country of Australia, we've got a bit of a thing about not being too big for your boots and not being the tall poppy. And if you get a bit too big, you better settle down, son. You're getting a bit too big for your boots. Better settle down, love. She's getting a bit too big for her boots. We need to bring her down a few pegs. Like, these are actual things that I've heard, right, about people in the past. So we have this kind of cultural thing that it's harder for us. We've created this thing that it's like, certain parts of Australia, we've got a bit of resistance to kind of owning out loud what your strengths and what your talents are, right? But I want you to, I'm giving you full permission right now and over the coming days to work out what that is and feel into that and own them because you need to own them, because so you can live your life purpose, you need to own them, right? So what are they? What are your strengths and talents? The beautiful thing is that even if you at times aren't sure, probably there's other people around you who are going to have really good perspective on this and are going to have an idea, right? So what would other people say you're great at and are your strengths and your talents? You might like to actually, over the next couple of days, you might like to ask them, some of them, right? People that you love. You might, if you've been lucky enough to be on LinkedIn for a while. You remember I said earlier about how I got a reminder about what some of my areas of expertise were because people literally had kept endorsing me for those things. So what are people endorsing you for? And what do people keep writing you recommendations for? Or what do they keep praising if you're in entrepreneurship for testimonial purposes? What are they saying testimonials? What are they saying? What are they praising you for? What are they saying is good about you? What are they saying they got out of it? And yeah, on any of your social ones, your Google reviews, your Facebook reviews, any of them. What's the feedback? What do people think you're great at that you may not necessarily have thought of or remembered that you're great at? I forgot to tell you, but I'm going to go back to it just so as I can show you, right? Haha, see that photo? See that photo? This is me on the weekend after I just left a 5 Rhythms dance class, right? And I tell you, that was the first one I've done just in time pre-Sydney, like going into madness again. Like I'm so glad that I just got it in time, that I got to be not just in a lounge room, but in a room with people in a dance class, just going for it, enjoying. There's this beautiful magic that happens when you've got a whole group of people and you have this group journey and you have this group experience and energy that, like, when it builds in the bits of the music where it builds up, like you're all just building up together, and it's just tremendously beautiful. And because they're a very supportive space, this particular space of this class that I go to, like everybody's being present with each other and you kind of quote unquote holding space for each other and you're all in this together. Like it's just such a beautiful, loving, unified energy to be in, right? So I came out of that looking like that, loved up, on fire, lit on fire on the inside, just going, oh my God, how many retreats can I run this year where I do dance journey at the start of it? I love it. That part of me that, like, when I was 6, right, that I used to be like running concerts in lounge rooms hasn't gone anywhere. So that just, came back to me. I forgot to tell you that was why I was because of this question, right? What lights you up with that same level of creative fire, with passion and creativity? Can you name something off the top of your head? Was there something that you used to do when you were younger that you've stopped doing? What is the thing? What is the thing for you? Because everybody's got some version of that, right? But it might not look like dance, and it might not look like painting, and it might not look like some form of actual arty art. It might look like something else, like maybe you like to make things. Maybe it's craft. Maybe you build things. Maybe you cook. Maybe you build programs online. Maybe you write code. Maybe you create programs for people in businesses. Maybe there's something in your business that you create things or create projects or create something. There's a whole bunch of other creative projects that require creativity that aren't necessarily arty, right? So what are your things that light you up? And I think the other one that's important for women too is we have the ability to create life, and we have the nurturing aspect of creativity, right? So there's something really beautiful within that as well, of maybe that's an aspect of, maybe you resonate with some aspect of that. And even if you haven't, like me at this point, circumstances have not worked out for me in such a way at 39 that I'd actually given birth to babies so far, but I'm a hell of a nurturer in other ways. When we were kids and living on farm and I was 6, we had sheep on our 4-acre property. And in the middle of winter, we would have, every now and then, there'd be a girl sheep who had twins, and she'd get in trouble on the worst, coldest, darkest, rainiest, most horrible nights, of course. And I remember this one time, Dad and Mum were down the back helping pull this lamb and pull these lambs out of this poor ewe. And the one that got she kept one of them, and the one that got the most manhandled in the process, that smelled like humans, got rejected. But we ended up raising that baby lamb, and I ended up raising that baby lamb very, very, very seriously. His name was Tiddles, as in Tiddles from Foot Rot Flats. If you're from New Zealand, you know what that is, right? And I just always had this thing that, maybe it was because mum was a social worker as well, but I always just was the adopter of orphans, and I just couldn't help it. I was having 3 Cabbage Patch babies a day there at one point when I was about 6 or 7. Like, I had this mass family, and I was just like, there's other ways in which nurturing might express for you, right? Maybe it's taking care of others. Maybe there's all kinds of other ways that it might come out. So what is that for you? Whether it's actual humans, little humans that you've created, or there's some other nurturing aspect that you do in your work or in some description, what lights you up with creativity and passion and fire? Finally, one more before our little meditation visualization process. What has the pandemic shown you about what is most important to you? I kind of already chucked in the story for you about me and when I was 9, and my for a while I had a business name called She Lives the Life She Loves. So that was my story of stepping into living the life that you love. This was the story I was going to tell you around about that. But what has the pandemic shown you personally around what is most important to you? While we weren't able to go anywhere, while you might have not been able to do some of the things that you loved for a little bit, while there is a lot of social issues and a lot of political issues and a lot of things coming up in the world right now, what did it show you? It showed people a lot of things before we got back to life. It showed a lot of people a lot of things. So just taking a recap for a moment, what was it that the pandemic showed you that is really important to you right now, that you feel most passionate about in the smaller picture and the bigger picture as well, right? What means a lot to you? Again, that's a part of the thing that you can't not say something about, or you can't not do something about now. What's it showing you in that respect? I'll just give you another couple of seconds just before we go into a little process now, just to write that down and write down any thoughts around that. Remember, you can always come back to this later. It's all good. It's all good. You're going to get a replay. It's all good. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to this visualization practice. So if you're not already, I imagine you might already be somewhere comfy. If you're not already somewhere private right now, is it possible, or you're most welcome to, if you have the replay of this, stop, pause, and set back up somewhere comfortable and private. But yeah, just take a moment to get yourself somewhere nice and comfy, whether you're lying, sitting, wherever you are, and somewhere that you won't be interrupted for a little bit. Okay, when you're ready, I want you to, wherever you are, I want you to just tune inwards for a moment. If you can, I want you to just close your eyes and just start to notice your breath. Tune into your breath. Just notice the rhythm in and out. What we're going to do shortly is I'm just going to take you through a little process where we're going to have a little rendezvous with future you at a point from now where you have achieved everything that you want to. And we're going to get some downloads, pull them out of your unconscious, and we're going to pull them into your consciousness over the next few days. But for now, what I want you to do, and also we're going to hit the switch on your creativity a little bit more. But in the interim, right now, I just want you to keep your eyes closed. Notice the sounds around you. Start to notice what's going on in your body. Do you feel tense? Do you feel heavy? Do you feel slightly anxious, wriggly? How are you feeling right now? As you keep breathing in and out, I just want you to deepen your breath a little bit. Try and take it further down so that, I'm not sure if you've ever done like a diaphragmatic breathing process, or you've done yoga or some form of martial art where they taught you to put your hands on your lower belly. Maybe your physio taught you the same thing. Put your hands on your lower belly, and every time that you take a breath in and out, you're trying to make your belly expand, rise. You make your hands rise and fall again. So as you keep breathing in and out, I just want you to put your hand on your lower belly and breathe into that place. And as you breathe out, I just want you to exhale and let go of any tension from the day. Any stuff you've been carrying around, any stuff that you don't necessarily need anymore or right now, other people's stuff that you've taken on. For this short amount of time, it's okay to just let it go. And you might want to just imagine taking it out of you, imagine it raining out of you into the ground, or imagine gathering it up in a ball and just shove it out the nearest window, right? Give it back to nature to take care of and fix it. Just get rid of that. Get rid of whatever you don't need anymore. And with each breath in, I just want you to keep breathing in the energy of you. I want you to imagine yourself like, the icon on your phone battery that fills up with battery charge. With each breath in, so I want you to imagine now filling up, filling up, filling up, all the way slowly up to the top of your head. And as you do, just keep letting go of all that tension in you. Just fall deeper into the chair or the bed or wherever you are. Just relax. Let go of the tension. Now, I want you to just trust what comes to you and what we're going to ask to come to you right now, right? Whatever it is and wherever it comes from, I want you to tune into the point in the future where you have achieved all of your goals, your visions, the things that you're passionate about right now, where you're deeply connected to your purpose and things have completely sorted and are going really well. I want you to tune into that point in time and space right now, right? Imagine that there's like a thread running through time and space from you to that place right now, wherever that is. You don't necessarily need to see it. You don't even need to feel it. Just trust that this process is going to work while you're doing this, right? Just have faith that it's going to work. But if you do get some visuals or you do get some feelings, I want you to tune into, as you tune into that energy, I want you to allow the energy of that place to flow back down this cord, back towards you and into you, and let it fill you up. And whatever the blueprint is of the actions that you took and all of the things that you had to do to get there, right? I want you to imagine it dropping back down the line, back to you now, and dropping back into, even if it doesn't come to your mind straight away, just let it drop into your unconscious, right? So just download, and it'll open up while you sleep tonight and you get out of your conscious, thinky, resistant place. It'll open up in that lower brain waves. Once you drop into the sleep brain waves and you're not resisting anymore, it'll come, right? But in the interim, I just want you to connect with that energy. Just imagine it also filling you up, filling you up, filling you up, filling you up, all the way to the top of your head. And as you sleep tonight, it's going to integrate into you and it's going to give you insights, yeah? So just allow those. I want you to just picture, if you're okay with it, I just want you to picture allowing that to open up. because that's going to impact more parts of you than just your mind. That's going to impact your cells. It's going to impact your nervous system. It's going to impact your biochemistry. It's going to impact your genes and the ones that turn on and off in response to stress and things like that, because in that place, there is a much better state for you than in pandemic crazy right now. So just allow it to, if you're okay with it, just allow it to slowly change things, shift things within you as they need to, as you become aligned with this future version of you and what you have to do to get there. Yeah. So you don't necessarily need to know in full detail right now how it's going to happen. Just trust that it'll come. Keep breathing that in. I just want you to set a clear intention while we're here. However you want to ask the question, like, can I please be given insights around how I get there and what I have to do? Can I please download those from my unconscious and from that place? Please show me in my dreams over the coming days and weeks. Please give me signs and help me understand. While we're here, I want you to also imagine, because this will help you do this as well, I want you to also imagine, just inside your head, I want you to imagine just going into a room, right? Really pretty, lovely, safe, comfortable, warm room that you just walk into. And on the wall, you'll see there's this really big switch over on the wall. I want you to go over and check what it's labeled as. Can you see what it says? There might be two of them, actually, because you might say one as well. But there's also another one that says creativity. Is it in the on or the off position right now? What is it? Is it a dial even? I think for some of you it's something different. Whatever it is, I want you to check where it's at. And if you choose to, if you're ready to, I want you to either, if it's not already, I want you to switch it on. I want you to switch it up to whatever level you feel comfortable to have it at now. Got it? Beautiful. Whenever you're done with that, I want you to imagine just coming back now to the space where you're actually in physical time and space and reality right now. I want you to imagine coming out of that place in your head in that beautiful room. Say goodbye. You can go back there if you ever want to go back there at some point in future later. But for now, I want you to come back into the room where your actual physical body is right now. You can leave your eyes closed just a little bit longer if you like. And I just want you to notice before you come back to the room and the sound of my voice. I want you to notice the sound of my voice. I want you to notice if there's any other sounds around you. And I want you to notice in your feet, in your hands. I just want you to notice how you feel. And I want you to start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. And just feel how you feel against the chair and wherever you are right now. Just become present. Feel into your body again. Deepen your breath again. Just take a few more breaths. Just breathe in the last of that energy before we're going to complete the process today. And whenever you're ready, I want you to bring all your energy, all your focus, all your attention back into the room where you are. On 3, 2, 1. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes if you didn't already. Hey, welcome back. So how was that for you in the time, in the whenever it is that you've actually come to doing this? How was that for you just now? And I'm curious for our final question, for the day. And you might like to have a journal page open for this one and keep that journal with you tonight, right? So what insights did you already get just doing that? And you might like to just keep taking notes on this over the next few days, right? Also, can I suggest drink lots of water for the rest of the day, and or just be a little bit gentle with yourself as you come back out the other side of this process, because I just took you into a slightly altered state of consciousness for a little bit. So I just want you to be mindful that you might be slightly more hyper aware for a second as you go back to the world, right? So just be mindful of if you need to take a moment to just chill first before you go back to the world, right? Or if you're home already, that's perfect too. Yay, yay you're already done, you're at home, or you don't have far to go. That's brilliant, awesome, cool. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for being with me for the process part, and I hope that those questions will help you a little bit with clarity over the next little bit. I wanted to give you tons of something awesome for today because it's been a while since I've done one of these, so I feel like I've got a backlog of amazing of just giving that I want to just give stuff right now, right? You may also like to, depending on how you find this over the next few days, or if you have some additional questions still around what your direction is going forward, and particularly if it relates to your career path or your progress in leadership right now, or any particular situations that you're dealing with in your work right now that you're finding really challenging and hard to navigate right now, and perhaps you need someone to talk to about that, or just in respect to your direction going forward in your leadership and any support that you need around public speaking. If there's anything that comes up for you in the next little bit that you're like, you know what, Nat, I would really love to just have a chat with you about that and be able to have a little bit more of a chat with you about if there's any support you can offer or what someone else that I know might be able to offer you, feel free to make use of this link right here to, if you go to, even at the where the 1331 part cuts off, that's my general calendar, just FYI. You'll be able to see all my calendars within that if you go to that. But also just in terms of discussing your options and other support forms in the world, you might also like to book this one in particular because it gives us a bit longer. We can also talk a little bit more about strategy as well as what options are available to you. Might be a bit better than the short 15-minute one where you can just, you know, ask a question, jump on and off again. You might like this one in that respect. So I just thought I'd put that out there just in case you need. Love to hear how you go in terms of insights and things that come to you or inspirations over the next little bit. Do feel free to contact me and share. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help you. So I think we'll call it quits on that for the day. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been wonderful to share this space across time and space with some of you. And yeah, really looking forward to chatting more, seeing you soon. Hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. And look forward to chatting soon. Lots of love. Nat out. Mwah! Have a great day.